What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Gizmo for the donation to the channel via the Cash App. Much respect to him for showing love. Left a message saying, hey, even the Joker hated Batman. So I get what you mean by that, man. About some of the people that hate on all of us, man. You know what I'm saying? But salute to you, man, for always showing support. Salute to all you guys that have shown support to my platform. All right. So also shout out to the brother 78 Sports TV because I saw him talking about this. Please subscribe to his channel. So there's a YouTube channel that has gotten its launch not too long ago. I think it's called Road Tripping. And it's a platform that has former NBA player Richard Jefferson turned ESPN personality, former NBA player turned ESPN personality Kendrick Perkins, and some other chick that she kind of looks like Michelle Beadle, but she looks kind of young to me. I gotta see who she is. Maybe it's not Michelle Beadle. But anyway, they were talking about Bill Russell and a former ESPN writer, wrote an article recently talking about how, in his opinion, Bill Russell does not get the respect from contemporary media that he should, and that he should be considered one of the GOATs. Okay? And he talked about his 11 NBA championships, but he also talked about the racism that he endured while playing in Boston, a notoriously racist city. It's interesting because Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who of course was from the Deep South, he often stated that some of the worst racism he ever experienced was from the North, states like Boston and Chicago. But anyway, Kendrick Perkins came up with a very, in my opinion, very stupid comparison. And that is that while he acknowledged that Bill Russell endured a lot of racism, he tried to make an argument that social media, that he backtracked once he read the room and saw nobody was agreeing with this shit. He tried to make the argument that the social media age, is more stressful than the pre-civil rights Jim Crow era that Bill Russell grew up in and was living in when he was a star for much of his era with the Boston Celtics. Talking about how it's stressful for players and you have to be on social media. And, he talked about how John Wall once said that he considered unaliving himself because of some of the stuff that goes on with social media and whatnot. And this is the thing, this is how I feel about that. Social media is an amplification of society. And, look, if you give a person a mask, ability to hide their identity, or at least they think they're hiding their identity, they're going to reveal certain things about themselves that they normally wouldn't feel comfortable revealing. So, of course, you're going to see some negative stuff out there because there's some evil people, right? If you're an athlete making millions of dollars, regardless of whether you're white or black, you're going to garner a lot of, you know what I'm saying, negative attention. You're going to have people saying negative things about you because they're envious. A lot of them feel like you don't deserve what you got. A lot of them feel like you didn't work hard enough for what you got. You know, remember it comes from a place of insecurity and inadequacy from the others. So yeah, they can say all these things about you, but at the end of the day, you got a fat bank account. You probably got a beautiful wife or girlfriend, and you're in a much more prosperous situation. You know what I'm saying? Status wise, than these people could ever even dream of. But what they want to do is destroy you mentally. That's what they want to do. Now, look, is today's world a heaven, an oasis? No. But imagine if there was social media then. Imagine if there was social media then. Could you imagine what a Bill Russell would have seen if he went on his computer? Because there was no hiding it back then. Like it was no need to hide certain things. Like remember, Bill Russell's a guy who had his home invaded quite a few times. People burning crosses on his lawn, defecating on his bed, and spitting on the walls, writing the word N word on the same people. By the way, or the same ilk of people, the grandparents of the same people who stormed the Capitol, which is a non-sports related event, and smeared their feces all the walls. Yeah, the grandparents of those people invaded a private home of Bill Russell, and guess what? His teammates didn't know about it, or his teammates thought, he was complaining too much. Same teammates that were able to, I'm talking about the white ones, were able to go anywhere they please, dine where they please, sleep whatever motel they wanted to go to. Well, the star player, Bill Russell, he couldn't do it. He had to go to, a friend's home to sleep by. Or, he had to go to a segregated hotel. He couldn't even be with his own teammates. Being called the N word on the road and at home. You got people that's supposed to be cheering the Boston Celtics, but they were booing him, especially the first few years, calling him the N word. That's not tolerated in today's NBA. If somebody was to scream out the N word in today's sports and a star player, hell, you got LeBron James kicking people out of games in the NBA for, saying disparaging things about his family members. Bill Russell grew up in the Deep South. He grew up in Monroe, Louisiana. When Bill Russell was 12, his father moved to, I believe it was San Francisco, because there was comparatively less racism on the West Coast. So when Bill Russell was drafted by the Boston Celtics, for about a decade, he was in an environment that was comparatively a lot more progressive. So then he goes to the Boston Celtics, which at the time was the most progressive sports franchise in professional sports. But the city of Boston was amongst the most racist. And Bill Russell went through it, man. And he internalized it. It was a battle that he had to face. Because when he first got there were very few black teammates. I think the only black teammates he had at first were guys like Casey Jones and maybe Seth Sanders. And remember, he was the first black superstar in NBA history, not the first black player. But there was people rooting against him from the get-go. You know what they were? There were people in the front office that said that a black superstar could not be successful because the fans don't want to root for a non-white player. So from a financial standpoint, Bill Russell's not going to last. Then you had racist coaches. They didn't want to coach black players, not of any significance. So it helped that he had a Red Auerbach, a guy who wasn't a racist and was progressive in that way, who only wanted the best player so he could win. But they couldn't babysit him. They couldn't be around, fighting for him every second of the day. And Bill Russell had to endure a lot of things. And guess what? Bill Russell had to hold a lot of shit in. He couldn't get into fights on a daily basis and get thrown out of games. He had to contain his temper. And he had to go out there. Motherfuckers talking so, well, how were guys like Wilt and Bill Russell able to put up so much numbers? Do you know what type of fucking frustration you feel when you got to hold your temper from motherfuckers calling you the N-word all day, every day, spitting at you, you know what I'm saying? Spitting at your family. It's just easy to say he could have crashed out. Because that's what they wanted him to do. Same thing they did with Jackie Robinson a decade earlier. So he focused all of his pain and anger and frustration and venom on the basketball court. And that's what motivated him to go out there and score 15 points a night. That's what motivated him to go out there and grab 22 rebounds a night and to dish out 4 or 5 assists a night. That's how he was able to sometimes, in key games in the postseason, will himself to 40 rebounds. That's how he was able to go out there in a pivotal game 7 in 1962 and get 30 points and 40 rebounds. And he was doing it for the first few years alone. And it wasn't just him. Oscar Robertson had to deal with the same shit. That's why they were so motivated to go out there and bust ass on the court. You hear me? They were busting ass because they wanted to prove that they belonged out there. Because the NBA, many people in the hierarchy didn't think that black athletes deserved to be on that court with those white stars. Will Chamberlain went through it too. Will Chamberlain was friendlier, but it was anger and resentment there too. Matter of fact, there was one player who wound up, ironically being a teammate of Bill Russell. He was a Southern boy, right? He was an enforcer, one of the OG enforcers. And one of his main things was to go out there and antagonize those black stars. He would do and say little shit to get under their skin, purposely saying little subtle racist shit. You know what I'm saying? So no, I'm sorry. Like, yeah, social media is a challenge. It is. It's a challenge. Um, but nah, you can't compare that to a system and set in stone, which had black people as secondary, second class citizens. It was enforced. I'm sorry. There's no comparison with the two. I mean, too many of these athletes there are babied enough. And those athletes weren't making millions of dollars. You get caught back then with a white girl and see what happens. You talk about mental health issues, Kendrick Perkins. Oh my goodness. Why do you think a lot of those guys wound up becoming alcoholics? The bottle was the only thing they had to cope with the pain. What are you talking about? That's one of the stupidest comparisons I've ever seen in my life, man. But that's what these, so-called sports athletes, experts do today to try to big up the players of today. They try to do anything and everything they can to downplay the players of the past and big up these guys today for being for existing. I mean, motherfuckers, they already give enough awards now. You get fucking trophies for going to the goddamn. Soon you'll get a trophy going to the playoffs. They'll call it the Tracy McGrady Award. Shit crazy. Get awards for doing average shit. The generation that always needs approval and adulation at all times. Participation trophy awards and shit, man. It's just crazy. That's all I got to say about it. What you guys say?